being in your early 20s is accepting mediocrity. There was no moment where I was like, yes, like I am an amazingly talented, genius, prodigy writer kid. But I always felt like I had to be in order to feel validated in a sense. Hello friends, and welcome to a new video about my life. This is me, Valentina Vabo, and I finally got a microphone. Okay, I'm gonna stop this. Welcome back. I love ASMR, but this is not the topic of this video. So I recently got back from my super long semester break, and I feel like I haven't talked to you, even though I have talked to you a lot, but not about my life and how I'm feeling and what's going on. So I thought we would catch up, and I got a microphone over here. So yeah, this is a little, I guess, podcast episode, if you will, where we talk about the confusion of being in your 20s, dealing with, I guess, the opposite of success, which I personally wouldn't call failure, but something along those lines, and dating. And yeah, where do I get started? So before the semester ended, I had already planned a trip to Mexico to see my best friend because she was doing an internship there and my family lives there. And I had the most wonderful, extraordinary time in Mexico City. I was staying with my uncle and just really maxed out on living, if that makes sense. I also made some cute vlogs if you want to check that out and catch me in the atmosphere of it all. But now I'm back to real life, and I came here on Easter weekend and I realized that I hadn't been alone for 2 months, which was a bit scary because I was like, what the fuck do I do? I was sitting here in my apartment and I was just like, wait, what does my body do? Like, what do I eat? Like, physically, what do I have to do now that I'm not surrounded by people at all times? And this is my home. I'm not a guest in somebody else's home like I had been for the past 2 months. And it took some adjusting, but it also really reminded me of all of the stuff that was going on before I left, because I felt like this specific trip, it was one of the most amazing trips I've had in the past few years. But because it was so amazing and so singular, it was almost as if most of my topics, or I don't want to say problems, but the things that I'm dealing with kind of just vanished. And yeah, when I came back, I was like, wait, there's so much going on in my life and in the world, of course. And I just want to take some time and reflect on it. And I think the biggest thing is just what it feels like to be studying a creative degree or liberal arts or like humanities in general. And I've had a pretty interesting career. I grew up in Bavaria and I started YouTube at 15, and ever since I started, you know, it would always just kind of climb and things would get better, and I started making money, and then I started making more money. But for the past, I guess, 1.5 years, all of my social media has really been declining in a sense. And that was because, one, I kind of found myself and I decided to niche down and do more literature content and talk about the things that really matter to me and not be so sensationalist about my own life, which just was exposing like the most extreme parts of my life or the most crazy stories because it would get a lot of views and a lot of attention. And I don't think that they're all like particularly bad videos, you know, talking about, I don't know, having sex with a girl on like while people were watching me like at a high school, like, I don't know, just like teenage stuff. And I don't think they were bad because I was always a big fan of speaking very openly about sexuality and sex and making the conversation about our own female pleasures more accessible. But at the same time, it did serve a purpose, which was, you know, gathering attention and, well, a secure income at the end of the day. And ever since I decided to, I guess, do something that I'm more passionate about, I have, you know, suffered a little bit with, or a little bit, you can see it in many different ways, but I've definitely like suffered the financial consequences of it. And I've always had this thing where I believed I would just be constantly climbing. And I don't think I'm in a bad place in my life right now, but everything has shifted so much because what I define as success is so different now. But I feel like I'm still, like, I have my mentality of upward mobility and more, not just in the sense of money. I mean it more in social and, yeah, in social capital, I guess. So learning more or writing more books and having more people read them. So it's also like, it's a very, like, it's very quantity based, but not just like relating to money. And I feel like I was always like very driven person, and I still am, but seeing that, you know, I would always think, okay, the more I put into it, the better the outcome is. But now I put more into things, but the outcome is worse. And I feel like that's been such a big lesson. And it's not just a lesson in the sense that I'm like, oh, this is how it goes and I know everything now, but it's an ongoing question to myself. What matters to me? And do I want to start making like a different type of content, but kind of, I don't know. So you probably, I don't know if anybody can relate to this because it's so specific to my job, but it's been a weird experience for somebody who was always like, you know, very good at everything, that I could be bad. Or being at my new uni where everybody's a writer, it was also just such a humbling experience to have my work criticized, and also to be surrounded by people who are much better than me, or at least as good as I am. And if you're a creative person in a more specific niche, like say you're a musician, for example, like all of your friends are going to be like, oh my God, your songs are so amazing and you're so talented. And, you know, you wouldn't say this aloud. Like, I would never claim to be like a great writer. But somewhere, I think subconsciously, I was getting validated by the people around me who had no idea, or like no formal training in literature, if that makes sense. But once you get to a point where everybody is good at what you're doing, it can be a little soul crushing. And it wasn't like horrible, but I feel like being in your early 20s is accepting mediocrity. Ooh, this is such a big word. And I'm honestly a little bit terrified of even speaking about this, because I feel like people just don't like to talk about the fact that they think that they are very good at something. And for me, like the past few years, my early 20s have been really about accepting the fact that I'm not a Wunderkind. And I never thought I was, in the sense that, oh my God, I'm a fucking genius and yada yada. But I always felt like like a pressure to be very, very successful at a young age. And I had this mentality of, if I'm not this and this by like 22, if I'm not simultaneously on the Forbes 20 under 20 thing, if I'm not incredibly wealthy, incredibly beautiful, and incredibly like I guess acclaimed in writing, and I've written 7 TV shows and published 4 novels, then I'm a failure. And that is so fucking absurd. I don't know, like, Am I crazy? Was I crazy? I don't think so. I think society, especially like during social media times, has created this specific pressure of being exceptional and being special. So I never, there was no moment where I was like, yes, like I am an amazingly talented, genius, prodigy writer kid. But I always felt like I had to be in order to feel validated in a sense. And, you know, the first few months where I was making almost no money and was relying completely on the savings that I had gathered up over the years. And it still sometimes is that way now. Like, it's ever since I like quit working as a journalist. I don't have my stable income from being a journalist. My income has insanely dropped from social media. So if I wouldn't have saved up money over the 5 years where I was, you know, a young teenager doing crazy shit on the internet, then I wouldn't be able to live my life the way I am right now. And even that is fucking scary because you're like, okay, I mean, I can definitely, you know, get a smaller apartment or do this and do that. But it's not really about the question of how much money do I have. It's more about this idea of decline. You know, here at my uni, it's very horrible. All they ever tell us is how we're going to make no money as authors, how we're going to have to work 3 jobs and be able to, you know, pull all-nighters working on our novels. And I mean, this is an exaggeration, of course. They're not telling us this every day, but in almost every class, our writing classes at my uni, there's always a point in each class where, you know, a teacher makes a joke or talks about like the realities of being a writer. And I mean, they're not wrong, okay? But I still was like, no, I'm gonna be different. Like, I'm gonna make money off my writing because I was young and fucking naive and I don't know. But I don't want to, you know, be so negative about all of this. All I'm just trying to say is that it's been such an interesting but also beautiful path of healing these ideas and these pressures, because let's face it, I am not a genius and I'm not special. I'm not especially talented. I can tell you that because the people around me are very talented and I'm not like some pick me person like, oh my god, my writing is so horrible. I think it has a certain quality and I have worked on my writing for years at this point. But still, this idea of life isn't always going upwards, it can also very well go downwards, is something that makes a lot of sense to me now. And I found my peace with it. I wouldn't say like forever, but I don't know. Like, it's so difficult to talk about this for me because I feel like everything I say sounds like pretentious and also stupid, but I don't know if it is. What I have had to remind myself of is that I am fucking 22. And that is so young. I have a lifetime ahead of me. And I'm so happy that I realized this simple fact. You know, I look at young people and, you know, a lot of them are doing incredible things. And instead of feeling jealous, I try to either get inspired or look elsewhere, in the sense of, like, don't go on TikTok and like see all of the amazing things that people are doing, but look around you. What are your friends doing? And yes, they're all doing amazing things. Like, I don't want to, you know, say that they're not, but everybody is fucking confused. We are barely in our mid-20s. The world is literally collapsing. Everything's a little insane, and so are we. And I think there's beauty in that. So, yeah, I am fucking confused. Oh, on that notion, I also forgot something that I wanted to say, which is I think I was more confident, more secure in myself, my vision of the future, my body, my relationships when I was 16 than I am now. I don't know if I'm the only person that feels like this. I don't think I am. But please tell me about yourself, because I was such a confident bitch at 16. Like, I had a plan. I knew how everything was going to work out. I was confident in every aspect of my life. People would always ask me, how are you so confident? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've always been confident. It's nothing I had to learn. But then life just kind of kept hitting me. And I think it's a form of naivety in a sense. But also, I don't know, like, why was I so confident and now I struggle with so many aspects of life? And I don't mean I'm struggling, but we're all struggling, okay? Life is painful. And maybe it's because I grew up very, like, nicely, like, safe and loving home and all of that, and I just wasn't exposed to, like, the world and having so much responsibility. But it's weird, like, it baffles my mind how we have this narrative of you are a little raw egg and then you become a full-fledged person. I've done the opposite. I'm less of a fully fledged person than I was at 16. I don't know, maybe that's a little weird. I really don't know what this means, but I think that's okay. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is, I guess, dating and love, because like I've said, why were relationships so much easier when you were younger? And I'm not the type of person who says like, oh my God, my first boyfriend, it didn't mean anything. Like, maybe for some people it's true, but all my relationships and all of their, like, at each age have meant so much to me, and they were all very serious in the sense that I define a serious relationships by imagining a realistic future with that person. And I did, and I dated most people, like, serious relationship for 1-2 years plus. So, okay, I'm sorry, my camera died. So in a sense, I believe that, you know, I've always had serious relationships, but of course my maturity level has changed, and the challenges you face as a couple are so different. Like with my current relationship, I had this phase where we were fighting a lot and I was very, like, anxious, and I just didn't feel really, like, comfortable, and I had big issues communicating what I wanted. And that was so new for me, like, not being able to communicate your feelings, because I've always been a person who, like, as I said, at a young age would always be like, no, like, I want this, I want that. Not in a very mean way, but in a way that's appropriate for the situation or relationship that you have with the person. So a more nuanced conversations with partners, like long-term ones, and a little more snappy ones with people where I felt like they were taking advantage of me. Like, I have this one story where I slept with a guy, and he was notorious for taking advantage of girls, but not like in the sense of they didn't want it, just he treated them very, very badly, even though it was consensual, or at least what I know of. Like, he was rough man. Either way, while we were, you know, doing the deeds, I was like, this is not giving anything. And I just literally stood up and said, can you drive me home? Like, this is not it. Like, I'm not having fun. And he was so shocked. He was, what? No woman has ever told me that. That's insane. And I was like, A, it's not a personal offense, but B, it was icky. Either way, like, I'm so impressed. I was literally 16. Now, I mean, in that situation, maybe I could still do it. But when it comes to relationships, like I'm so terrified of speaking of what I want, and how come this has gotten worse? How come as I age, some things that I used to be really good at are now so hard for me? Because you would think, okay, you've had the practice, you've done this a million times, and I don't know, maybe I need to like go to therapy again and work this out. I wish I would, like, if going to therapy was easy in the sense of like getting a spot and everything, I bet, like, I swear to God, I would already be in therapy again. Ever since I moved, I, lost my old therapist in that sense. Now I tried getting a new one, but it was very hard. So then I was just like, whatever, I'm fine. Something I found super weird being 22 is the fact that relationships do me more now. And that's what everybody always saying, like, oh my God, my first boyfriend, it didn't mean anything. Because at that point, you know that you're not going to be together for your whole life. As I've said, I define serious relationships as imagining a realistic future with them. So if that's, hey, we're going to date until graduation, but then we're going to split, I think that's very realistic. Or if you say, oh, that's my boyfriend of being young, and then I'm going to find somebody else when I'm 30. You know what I mean? Just kind of keeping the horizon. And you could be wrong, of course. So yeah, but now it's like, do I want to spend the rest of my life with this person? And I'm a fucking, like, whatever, bisexual, I hate monogamy, feminist babe. But I'm still like, do I have to settle down now? Like, is this the end of my life? Like, am I turning into an old hag? I seriously ask myself these questions, and I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. But I guess it's not that ridiculous because they keep popping up in my head and I don't know what to do with them. I think it comes from the pressure of the people around you. Like, this is, I don't know, I've gotten so fucking weak. Like, back then I was always like, I don't care what other people are doing, I'm doing my stuff, I am me, I am different, I don't care. And I literally did not care. Like, at 17, what other people were wearing, doing, I was like, I appreciated it, but it didn't affect me. And now it does. Like, people I know are getting married, people I know are having children. Like, literal creatures popping out of their minges. Like, that's insane. Like, that's just insane. So yeah, where does that put me? I'm studying creative writing. What a fucking joke, okay? Like, not to be disrespectful towards myself, but like, what a fucking joke. And like, I don't want to get married now. I don't want to have kids. Like, I want to write my silly little poems and go to parties. Like, is that weird? Everybody around me seems to, I don't know. I think it's a 50-50 split. I'm exaggerating this. I'm blowing it out of proportion. But it's kind of like a split between like, oh, we're quirky and I don't know. I was going to say some very graphic, smarty taking, whatever. Anyways, you know what I mean. Like, people are very unhinged and like, oh my God, yeah, we're young. And I love that. And then there's the other friends who are like, this is my engagement ring and we didn't sign a prenup because we're going to be together for the rest of our lives. And I'm like, babes, he's going to steal all your money and gonna leave you pregnant with no money, with all of your money, because he doesn't have a job. You pay him to be your puppy support animal, whatever. I'm talking about specific people, and that situation makes me furious. But yeah, either way, dating and being in a relationship really is weird because I don't know. It just, nothing makes sense at this point. I'm like, ugh, yes, I want to be in an open relationship. But, oh God, that's a completely different topic. This is going off the rails. I'm so sorry. I think I'm going to end it somewhere around here. I said a lot about my confusion. I hope I didn't confuse you. If anything, I hope I made you feel a little less alone with your obsessive thoughts. Is that what I have to call them? I don't know. Either way, I love you very much, and do tell me if something like this interests you, this little format, this silly I'm gonna stop. I'm so sorry. Okay, so yeah, I will see you in my next video, and tell me what you prefer. Little long conversations about love and life. These are also my fucking unfiltered thoughts. I literally cannot tell you if this made sense, what I've just been saying for the past 30 minutes, or if it sounds like an alien vomiting his thoughts. We will see. And yeah, bye bye.